2010 was an important year for the multiplayer first-person shooter genre. And if you were like me, Battlefield Bad Company 2 likely remained the top game on your Steam playlist for the duration of that year. It's a safe bet that the developers behind Battelbet Remastered were right there with me. Take Bad Company 2's commitment to class balance, open-ended and highly destructible map design, and delightfully over-the-top squad-based shootouts, put all of that into a Minecraft-like world where everything is made out of blocks, and what you get is this crazy game. It's still in early access, and it could certainly use some fine-tuning, but if you're into the flavor of multiplayer chaos, wherein everything explodes like you're in the middle of a Transformers movie, insanely large 127 versus 127 player skirmishes easily satisfy the craving for a return to those glory days. Just to clear it up, this isn't actually a remaster of an existing game, it's more like an in-joke for how many times the developers started over. Anyway, Battlebit's all-too-familiar primary mode Conquest pits two factions against one another for a literal tug-of-war over a number of capturable control points scattered across a large battlefield. You can't have a Battlefield-style game without it, and it works just as well as ever. There are a few other modes, like Russian Frontlines, which also come straight out of the Battlefield playbook. That said, it doesn't seem like there's a simple deathmatch mode without all the strategic stuff, but it is pretty neat that you can choose between 32 versus 32, 64 versus 64, or the absolutely bonkers 127 versus 127 player skirmishes, depending on how intimate or not you'd like your battles to be. Things truly heated up once I jumped into a match with all 254 players. Each of the 19 maps is geographically diverse, albeit graphically simple, allowing for a lot of different stuff to happen all at one time without performance issues. And that can be fantastic because each building is made out of destructible blocks, and since vehicles are plentiful and every class kit can gain access to a rather large amount of C4 as a loadout option early on, a typical Battlebit match features a plethora of tense and tactical firefights accompanied by more explosions that have gone off across the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With literally hundreds of players going at it, this level of wonky chaos is ratcheted up to the nth degree, and it can be a pure joy to sit back and laugh at all of it, whether you find yourself in the right squad and mop up, or a battle goes horribly wrong.
Behind us!
Thanks to night mode and maps like the urban sprawling Tensatown, these massive terrain-spanning skirmishes can be home to some truly interesting warfare, the likes of which we haven't seen in games that prioritize pretty graphics. It all works so well because at its heart, Battlebit Remastered is a tightly designed first-person shooter, and it gets its shooting bits just right. There is a wide range of primary and secondary weapons to customize your loadout with, such as the L86A1 light machine gun and the MP443 pistol, and they are relatively easy to progress and unlock attachments for. They may look blocky, but they sound good and handle realistically, providing punchy feedback. The only thing that struck me as glaringly missing from the early access version is any variety of shotgun. Moving around on foot is straightforward enough, though it's not perfect in action. Crouching, military crawling, and vaulting over objects all feels natural, but I'm not as much of a fan of its dizzying movement speed. Every soldier on the map can sprint indefinitely, but some weapons like SMGs let you sprint at a rate rivaling that of a Quake 3 arena combatant. And though this helps make the enormous maps more manageable, it can sometimes feel unnatural. But despite the blocky graphics, high-speed action, and a few missing features in between, Battlebit still has most of the trappings of a proper Battlefield game, including and especially the squad-focused team play based around the mechanics of its 6 classes. Yeah, I went there, Battlefield 2042. The medic and support, for instance, are both equally necessary for a squad to stay positioned long enough to outlast an enemy onslaught. A squad full of assaults will just get picked off. I spent most of my 10 hours playing as a medic, and I found a lot of enjoyment in watching my rank increase as bonuses poured in from reviving downed teammates and patching up their wounds. I love the fact that I can drag teammates or downed opponents around. That comes in clutch during tense firefights. But, as I mentioned before, some mechanics aren't fully tightened yet. For instance, I'm not a fan of how the ammo crates dropped by the support class don't automatically refill ammunition and require some extra finagling to work. Also, vehicles are a big part of any Battlefield-style shooter, since those are what really set that series apart from Call of Duty for a long time. But they suffer in Battlebit due to poor physics and shaky handling. Interacting with any vehicle is clunky and awkward before you can even start the engine. And this is due to a timer that can take several seconds to switch seats or simply enter the vehicle. Just getting into a moving tank is way more inconvenient than it should be, and there's no clear reason that I would need to sit there and hold the F key just to do that. Spawn timers on choppers also seemed way shorter than on tanks for some reason, and yet there is no parachute, meaning once you spawn onto your squad's chopper, you need to sit there and wait for the chopper pilot to deploy the rappel line and get close enough to the ground just to exit safely. Also, the Humvee's mounted gun felt underpowered and proved to be basically useless when I couldn't even kill a lone soldier at spitting distance. I'm not sure how much of that is an intentional design choice and what's just unfinished, but it feels like right now the best way to enjoy vehicles is by crashing them into buildings or watching them blow up from afar.
I love C4.
At least it's all held together by strong and approachable multiplayer functionality. The interface is extremely clean and clear, showing all the important contextual information, like controls, ammo count, minimap, chat, squad details, hit markers, and so forth, exactly where I'd expect everything to be. There's a built-in clan system and integrations for Discord and Twitch as well, in theory, though the external integrations didn't seem to work for me, but it's still great that it effortlessly integrates your Steam party into your squad when you join a match. It also does its darndest to keep you and your friends together, even when the automatic balancing system forces people to switch sides. I will say that the main menu is a bit bland for a multiplayer-only shooter, and since there's no music or sound to welcome you in, you might be immediately underwhelmed. Don't be fooled by the minimalistic approach, however. Once you get in there and start tweaking stuff, Battlebit does offer a mind-boggling depth of customization options in terms of graphics, controls, and gameplay. But most new players probably won't need to sit there and customize too much on the default settings, besides toying with some graphics options. Everything else was set just right for my needs, aside from the non-inverted helicopter controls, which took me less than 10 seconds to figure out and fix. As a result, the amount of time it took to set Battlebit up from the first install and jump into a proper match was negligible. Within a few minutes, I was already blowing stuff up, capturing objectives, and having a wild old time. Battlebet Remastered remembers what made Battlefield games great in their heyday. There are no flashy scripted tornadoes, just big maps teeming with combat hotspots and myriad destructible buildings. That kind of throwback fun shines through even the basic graphics, highlighting how this kind of gameplay was never about realism so much as it is goofy combat chaos with a ton of people. So it's an easy sell for anyone looking to jump into hectic, squad-based action with hundreds of other players, whether for a few minutes or a few hours. Naturally, the early access version isn't fully cooked yet, especially due to some underbaked mechanics like stupid fast running speed and clunky vehicle controls, but what already exists is an impressive first swing at what could become a much more comprehensive tribute to the Battlefield series. And even in its current state, it's already one of the more captivating multiplayer shooters on Steam right now. For more, check out our reviews of Remnants 2 and Trepang 2. And for everything else, stick with IGN.